What a turn-up in Turin on Tuesday. Juventus losing their first domestic game of the season. They didn't lose it. They were thrashed by 3-0 by Fiorentina. And it would top off a terrible day for the defending champions. Remember, earlier on in the season, they were handed a win against Napoli because Napoli didn't travel because of Corona. Well, Napoli appealed and they won that appeal. So Juve, in theory, lost 6 points today, if you like. Fourth in the table. They are 7 points off Milan, who are in action against Lazio on Wednesday. Matteo Bonetti is with us. Matteo, we'll talk about that appeal a little later on, but let's focus on the game. What went wrong today?
Well, what went wrong is Juventus went down to 10 men early on in the first half with Juan Cuadrado's horror tackle, the studs nearly breaking the leg of Gaetano Castrovilli, the Fiorentina midfielder. And it was just confusion after that. The defense was absolutely shocking. The partnership between Matthijs de Ligt and Leo Bonucci especially, who you could say was at fault for all of the goals. It was one of the worst displays that we have seen from Juventus. And just to set the picture of how crazy this result was, the last time Fiorentina beat Juventus away in Turin was 2008. That was back when Cesare Prandelli was in his first as manager of Fiorentina. This is Cesare Prandelli's first win with Fiorentina and Juventus's first loss. It's finally come after really a season of uncertainty and inconsistency and Andrea Pirlo basically having to learn on the job. But today, there just wasn't the response. Defensively, it was about as bad as I can remember from Juventus. Normally, the spine of Juve is their strength, right? It has been, at least for the last 9 seasons that they've won the Scudetto. But this was a worrying performance. Nothing went right. Yes, you could say the referee didn't help out Juventus. There was questions about a potential penalty on Cristiano Ronaldo. There was questions that maybe Borja Valero, the Fiorentina player, should have been sent off. But you can't make those excuses. You simply cannot lose to this Fiorentina that was just above the relegation zone, that still hadn't won a game under their manager, and losing 3-0, it just simply was not good enough. Not the mark of a team that is favorites to win the Scudetto, that's for sure.
Well, as you mentioned, a team that hadn't won in 2 months coming into this time, Matteo. How much of a pass then do you give Pirlo? Remember, they were 1-0 down before Cuadrado got sent off, in the fact that any side playing with 10 men are going to struggle.
Well, it felt like Pirlo was on the right direction by taking out one of the strikers, Morata, adding another midfield wide player in Federico Bernardeschi just to try to get a little bit more control of this game. But it's just really difficult to give any sort of excuse to Juventus with the quality of players they have. A team that, in my mind, before the season was the favorite yet again to win the Scudetto, their 10th straight. And Andrea Pirlo, there's glimmers that he's starting to get some things right, that he's starting to figure out what the identity is of this squad. For example, he's putting a third central midfielder. He realized that you can't just put in a video game formation with 4 attackers and not get overrun in the center of the park. So he's figuring things out. It's really hard to blame Pirlo just because he had never managed a game in his life before the start of the season. He had just gotten appointed under-23 manager. He didn't get even a minute with that team, and he was instantly given a team that had Cristiano Ronaldo, was expected to go all the way in Serie A, and of course challenge for the Champions League. So he's learning on the job. You can give him the benefit of the doubt that he's still trying to figure out exactly what the best Juve side is. With all the new players that they've brought in, there's definitely still going to be some questions.
Meanwhile, of course, they lost the appeal earlier in the day as well. Just explain whether or not this was a surprise or not.
It felt like it had been coming. It was the National Olympic Committee that took a look at the ruling and found some holes from the original ruling, which came down really hard on Napoli, a -1 point deduction in the Serie A standings. Obviously, a 3-0 loss to Juventus in a game where Napoli said they weren't allowed to travel by the local government. And it was exactly that provision which allows them now to replay the match. I think for the neutrals, this is obviously a good thing. Juventus-Napoli should be one of the best games of the season, especially Napoli in the way that they have showed that they can play. But it's a massive blow for Juventus that, saw Milan at the end of the barrel in Serie A, and now -3 here. Obviously, they can overturn that if they beat Napoli. Easier said than done. And then losing the Fiorentina match. But there's been whispers in the Italian media that there would obviously be the appeal and that they would have to look at this again because it was a really harsh decision right away. obviously the idea from Serie A was that they didn't want to set the precedence for other teams saying, you know what, we've got 10 COVID cases, we don't want to travel. But then again, you can make the case saying, well, health is more important than sporting reasons. And they went and looked back and said that, yeah, the local government apparently said that Napoli couldn't travel. That's why they didn't make the trip to Turin. And so it is. Now we actually have Juventus-Napoli, a potentially excellent game in early 2021.
What significance does all of this have regarding the title race? Is it fair to say it's a four-horse race? Napoli, the two Milans and Juve?
Yeah, it still is a four-horse race, Dan. I completely agree there. It's the two Milan sides. It is Juventus, even though they have taken this blow. It's such a long season, and Milan, who are currently top of the table, they have the youngest average squad in Serie A. They've had injuries, so I feel like everyone's almost thinking this is too good to be true. Are we really going to say that they're the favorites still in the second half of the season when it's such an inexperienced team, aside from Zlatan Ibrahimovic? Inter have no excuses, right? They have no Champions League football to play for. Antonio Conte has all of his eggs in the Serie A basket. And then Napoli now, they can say, right, we just basically gained 3 points. If we can beat Juventus, we have a much better chance than we did 12 hours ago to make a real stand and actually challenge and win the Scudetto, which they were. Remember, for the last 10 years, they've been the kind of anti-Juve in Serie A, the one that was supposed to challenge for all these Italian titles.
Matteo Bonetti, thank you very much. There'll be a lot for Matteo and Kay and Mina to discuss on the next edition of the Serie Awesome podcast. That drops on Thursday. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.